let's let's shed some light on some things. Let's shed some light on some. I couldn't think of a better intro. So I've criticized companies in the past, mainly Nintendo, just because of their business practices, be it because of things that are related to them making it difficult for people to play certain games by making them have limited releases, or by having really crappy monetization behind certain games. That's the realm I've went into before. But I want you to know that this is nothing like that. And that's why I'm going for a very minimal editing style, so I can get across to you how serious this is. This is much worse. We're talking about actual abuse. So, from the jump, major trigger warnings for abuse, suicide, sexual harassment, anything of that manner. You understand what I'm getting at. I just want to bring this up to say, in my previous videos, I've gotten some things wrong. I've messed up a few things here and there. I've done, not as much research as I wanted to. That's why in my Final Fantasy 15 video, I did so much research, because I wanted to make sure I actually had the whole story. But in this case, this is very different. This is a developing story. Things are happening every single day. So instead of just detailing to you every single little thing that's happened concerning this ongoing case, I think it's much more constructive to simply add to the discussion by putting my voice out there and saying that what's happening is totally unacceptable and we should stand against it. We should join the employees of Activision Blizzard in their protests, in their walkouts. We should support that wholeheartedly, even if we don't, participate in those walkouts. But to rein it in a little bit, I just want to say that a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks, depending on when, 2 weeks ago, depending on when this video comes out, essentially the state of California sued Activision Blizzard because of the state of their work environment, the things that are happening within their workplace. And this isn't something that's specific to one branch or two branches. This is something that's consistent throughout the culture of the entire company of Activision, and the entire company of Blizzard. And it's something that is completely unacceptable. But essentially what we've been seeing is a lot of claims about harassment, a lot of mistreatment of women, a lot of mistreatment of women of color, just all sorts of different ways of mistreating women and other marginalized groups. And in a way, to me at least, not to downplay any of this, but sadly none of this was surprising to me. Because even as someone who's not an insider in the industry, who's never had a position within the industry, even as someone who's technically a total outsider, this sort of thing is just, not surprising to hear, given the gaming culture, that there are people like this, and lots of them within these major companies. And there have been rumors like this for pretty much every major game company, or at least those within the country I live in, which is America. The point is, this sort of thing is generally just accepted to happen within this industry, and it shouldn't be, because it's unacceptable. But it speaks to a larger issue beyond just gaming. It's more of an issue with the world at large. You're going to see these sorts of mistreatments within any company, within any industry. And again, that's unacceptable, but that's why it's so important that we support the employees of Activision Blizzard and any other companies, employees that come out and start to try and do something about these injustices that are constantly happening. So, in short, this video isn't as much about me covering all the details of the Activision Blizzard situation, more so me speaking specifically about the kinds of injustices that have been happening within Activision Blizzard and how they're representative of the industry, but also just every other industry you can think of, basically, every other big business, right? This sort of thing is going to be commonplace in one way or another. So it's up to us, and it's up to the employees to speak out about it and hopefully spark some change. This is very important. This is something that we have to think about, something that we have to do something about. We're going to start light here and then build up to the more unacceptable unacceptable abuses within the workplace, although this is quite unacceptable too. So as we can see here, it says in this article from Kotaku, an African-American employee noted that it took her 2 years to be made into a permanent employee, while men hired after her were made permanent employees. She also was micromanaged, such that her male coworkers were known to be playing video games without any intervention by her supervisor, but her supervisor would call and check on her if she took a break to go on a walk. So as you can see here, this isn't necessarily anything sexual, but it is just a general disrespect and disregard for how these people feel. And I think that's actually quite indicative of the way Activision Blizzard handles women in the workplace. They generally don't really care how they feel. They micromanage them, they abuse them, they let male employees off the hook quicker, they let them do whatever they want, but the females, they can't let them just simply be and do their jobs. Now that story is probably evidence enough that women were being mistreated in the workplace, but I think something that's really important to bring up is that there were consistent behaviors from male employees happening, again, throughout multiple branches, and it was something that was so commonplace that they created a name for it, something called cube crawls, where male employees would get super drunk or super wasted, and then they would just climb or crawl through the cubicles and harass female employees. As can be seen here, it says, in the office, women are subjected to cube crawls in which male employees drink copious amounts of alcohol as they crawl their way through various cubicles in the office and often engage in inappropriate behavior towards female employees. Male employees proudly come into work hungover, play video games for long periods of time during work while delegating their responsibilities to female employees, engage in banter about their sexual encounters, talk openly about female bodies, and joke about rape. Think about this for a moment. No one should ever have to deal with this. No one should ever have to deal with being in the presence of someone who is actively talking about raping you. And it doesn't matter if it's a joke or not. It's just completely unacceptable, disgusting, and people need to be held accountable. There's a story about this woman who was having her nudes passed around the workplace. And obviously that was unbearable. That's terrible. That shouldn't happen to anyone. But it continued to happen to her. And apparently, on some work trip, a male coworker of hers brought like a dildo and lube for her, right? And at that point, she'd had enough. She'd had enough of the abuse. She decided that she decided to take her own life. There are people out here taking their own lives because of the experiences they've had with these companies. You can see this article by Bloomberg Law says Activision Blizzard sued over frat boy culture, and the reason that frat boy culture is in quotes is because that's the same term that upper management keeps using. And I hate this term, because frat boy culture makes it seem like there's some level of ignorance there. Obviously, frat boys have a reputation for being, toxic, for having this toxic behavior, but there's a level of ignorance there because they're just college students who don't know any better. But we're talking about grown adults who do know better. They know exactly what they're doing, and their behaviors are causing people to end their own lives. Now, I want to touch on another Kotaku article, something that's especially disgusting, called the Cosby Suite, essentially a suite in which Blizzard upper management during BlizzCon would go, and essentially they would bait women. They would try to get as many women in that room as possible. And I think, they were in there with a portrait of Bill Cosby. It was called the Bill Cosby Suite, knowing what we know now and knowing what they thought they knew in 2013, it's pretty obvious why they called it the Cosby Suite in the first place. As you can see, moving down here, in 2013, people, these people, Alex Afrasiabi, the former, head of the World of Warcraft team, these people in huge, high positions of power were so emboldened. They were so, not afraid of anything. They were actively, openly posting about these things on social media. They had no fear. They didn't care. He called it the Cosby Suite. Do you see how ingrained this is within Blizzard's culture? It can be seen in these DMs as well. Look, Dave Kozak says, I am gathering the hot chicks with 2 X's for the cause referring to the Cosby Suite. Alex Afrasiabi says, bring 'em. Corey Stockton says, Greg, you on the way? Dave Kozak says, you can't marry all of them, Alex. Alex Afrasiabi says, I can. I'm Middle Eastern. Jesse McCree says, you misspelled F. Greg Street says, at Hilton Bar. Jesse McCree says, come up to the cause, again referring to the Cosby Suite. See how this was openly posted in 2013? They had no fear. They figured, yeah, this is fine, let's post it. Let's post some of our head staff talking about how we plan to bring women to the Cosby Suite. Do you understand how ridiculous this is? When we look at the people who were in the Cosby Suite, we realize that a lot of these people are current Blizzard and upper management, former upper management who's found employment elsewhere, higher-ups in the HR department. All of these people had prominent positions or currently have prominent positions within large companies or in Activision Blizzard itself. And that's completely ridiculous. The fact that we know who the people in this picture are, the fact that they felt emboldened to the point where they could just post about it online, I mean, I guess it shows how different it was back then. But now that we have the receipts, now that we can see this, we know it's unacceptable, we know that they thought it was okay at one point in time, we can take action. Activision Blizzard is in dire need of restructuring. These people need to be removed from the company. And the people who found employment elsewhere and higher management of other companies, they need to be removed as well. Because we cannot trust these people. We have no idea how many women they've hurt over the years. We have absolutely no idea. We've only heard a few stories. And there could be so many more. But this is the exact issue, right? Because we're talking about higher-ups. We're talking about people in positions of power who are using that power to abuse other employees, the people below them. How are we supposed to expect upper management to weed out the abusive employees when they are the abusive employees? How are we supposed to believe Bobby Kotick when he says he's going to remove these people, remove these abusive individuals? How are we supposed to believe him when he says in his statement, oh, this isn't representative of us, we really do care about women, when everything that's happened for years proves the exact opposite? The former president of Blizzard, Mike Morhaime, made a statement in which he basically just said, oh, I'm sorry, women. I'm sorry I let this abuse happen. This abuse that I was aware of, that I was complicit in, because I received emails and notifications and complaints saying that it was happening, and I actively ignored them. We can read here in the replies to Mike Morhaime's Twitlonger, it reads, while I appreciate this, Mike, I also know there was no way you didn't know how toxic, for example, the 2 Robs were. I was there. I knew you knew on some level, but in the end, we didn't matter to you. I've spent the better part of 10 years recovering from my time working at Blizzard. We can see a letter that was written by a former employee named Kristen, who replied to the tweet as well. Mike, I love games. I love the games industry. I am an advocate of equality. I don't believe these things are at odds with each other, but as long as a man is allowed to continue to work and be promoted at a AAA game company where he has previously exhibited such egregiously bad behavior, I fear that those things aren't possible to reconcile at Blizzard. As long as men in power are behaving in a predatory fashion toward women in the company, it will be impossible for women to truly feel comfortable, valued, or safe. As long as women don't feel comfortable, valued, or safe, it will be harder and harder for the company to draw in and keep talented women who love games. This means women will continue to be a smaller portion of Blizzard's audience than men. It means fewer women will work at Blizzard. It means over time, Blizzard will be added to the list of companies that are bad for women. I truly believe men who behave like him will cost the company money and its good reputation. We care about quality in our games. Why not our people? With the uptick in attention to women's issues in the last year or so, the best way for the company to lead responsibly is to fully support women and make it a priority to make sure everyone feels comfortable at work. I know there are initiatives with the Women at Blizzard group, but there needs to be support across the company in order for change to take effect. Hearing men in power talk about uplifting women and treating them fairly can have a hugely positive impact. Seeing women in power will do even more, but making sure men aren't abusing their power over women is absolutely essential. And the sad part, his apology was the best one we've gotten so far. Because hey, it actually was one. All of the current staff, they've made statements like, "Oh, this doesn't represent us. Oh, there is no abuse in bossing say." Own up to it. Shut up. Everyone knows now. Just look at Fran Townsend, right? She is someone who has in the past talked about how torture is okay. She is someone in the past who has talked about how whistleblowing is bad. And she has gone on record about how there really isn't any abuse in the workplace in Activision Blizzard, or at least she hasn't seen it. And now, after all of her terrible statements, she's going and blocking her employees on Twitter because she can't take the criticism. And Bobby Kotick has the nerve to say, "Oh, feel free to come to me or to HR when you have any complaints." When he's actively ignored these complaints, when HR is complicit in the abuse, when they defend abusers, when sometimes they are abusers, I feel like my mind is going to explode. I feel like I cannot process how stupid and ridiculous that sounds, but it's the world we live in. I feel like if you, after all of this, support Activision or Blizzard, it says a lot about your character. It says a lot about what you're willing to tolerate. It says a lot about the kind of person you are. I have no idea how you could continue to support these people. So, one thing's for sure, I'm never playing Overwatch again. I'm never playing Call of Duty again. Never going to try out World of Warcraft. I don't expect everyone to do the same, but I encourage you to protest wherever you can, because this is unacceptable. And it makes me sick to my stomach. See ya.